After the male lead's partner lost memory, they became super clingy and even needed help going to the bathroom, wanting to stick with him every moment. He didn't want his partner to regain memory because this marriage was forced by him. Chang Jin met Lu Dao at 17, as the son of the richest man on Hera planet. He immediately pointed at Lu Dao and asked his father for him, but now he regrets it. Chang Jin went to the marriage office. By then, he was 25 and had been married for 7 years. He pushed open the door, and the staff greeted him happily. He responded politely and handed over a document. The document indicated that his spouse was Lu Dao. The staff confirmed with him if he wanted to dissolve the marriage with Lu Dao. He lowered his head and answered the staff very affirmatively. The staff asked Chang Jin why he wanted to dissolve the marriage, and Chang Jin explained with his head down that Lu Dao had no feelings for him. They had been married for 7 years, but the other party applied to go to the battlefield the day after the wedding. The time they spent meeting was pitifully short, and even though he got a special military accompaniment permit from the government, he was sent away after a day and a half. The staff felt that Chang Jin loved Lu Dao deeply, so they asked if he had tried to improve their relationship. Chang Jin immediately said he had tried, but the other party did not accept his affection and instead found it disgusting. The staff indicated that Lu Dao had never been to the marriage office before and comforted Chang Jin, saying it might be in Lu Dao's nature. Chang Jin, however, told the staff that Lu Dao would come tomorrow. He recalled how Lu Dao despised him and pushed him away. He explained to the staff that he received a video from Lu Dao a month ago. Lu Dao said he would return on the 23rd of this month and planned to take him somewhere, asking him to prepare in advance. The staff thought that Lu Dao might not necessarily be bringing him for a divorce. Chang Jin hugged himself sadly. He racked his brain but couldn't guess where Lu Dao would take him, thinking that only a divorce would align with Lu Dao's way of doing things. The staff reminded Chang Jin that he and Lu Dao didn't have a joint account, couldn't share assets, and with his father's bankruptcy, his account balance would fall below the standard line after the divorce. He would then be exiled to a second-class planet, and the staff suggested he communicate with Lu Dao again, hoping for a turnaround. Chang Jin, however, remained silent. He believed there would be no turnaround because Lu Dao didn't marry him willingly. Rather than waiting for Lu Dao to speak, he thought it might be better to initiate the divorce himself, perhaps leaving a good impression. Suddenly, a message came through on his light screen. Fei Li informed him that Lu Dao had been attacked by the Zerg, was seriously injured, and was undergoing emergency treatment. Chang Jin got up immediately in a panic, no longer caring about the divorce. At this moment, he and Fei Li were waiting outside the emergency room. Lu Dao was still in surgery. Soon, the indicator light of the operating room went off, and Chang Jin quickly stepped forward to inquire about Lu Dao's condition from the doctor. The doctor said that Lu Dao was out of life-threatening danger and would wake up soon. However, the venom had eroded his memory, meaning he would experience temporary amnesia, and his personality would change accordingly. It would take about 6 to 8 months to recover his memory and bodily functions, but his combat ability would not be affected. Chang Jin's mind was a bit muddled. He felt that this was heaven showing him mercy, giving him and Lu Dao more time together before the divorce. At this moment, Lu Dao had already woken up, surrounded by people. His grandmother tugged at his sleeve, somewhat relieved that he had finally woken up. But unexpectedly, the next second he directly moved his hand away. Fei Li helped him sit up, still warily looking at his grandmother. Lu Dao noticed Chang Jin standing behind Fei Li and politely greeted him, asking if they knew each other. Chang Jin was a bit confused, but Lu Dao smiled and even complimented him on his looks. Seeing this, Fei Li quickly introduced Chang Jin to Lu Dao, stating that Chang Jin was Lu Dao's partner and also introduced his own role as a secretary. The grandmother was Lu Dao's only living blood relative, and Lu Dao was the youngest general in the empire. Fei Li then suggested taking the grandmother back to rest, leaving Chang Jin to look after Lu Dao. Before leaving, the grandmother bluntly advised Chang Jin to give up any ulterior motives since Lu Dao would see through all disguises once he regained his memory. Chang Jin felt a mix of emotions but still politely assured the grandmother, telling her not to worry. He went ahead to pour some water, completely unaware that Lu Dao was watching him. Lu Dao stared at him intently but said nothing. Feeling a bit flustered under the gaze, Chang Jin blushed and asked if Lu Dao was thirsty and wanted some water. He handed the cup to Lu Dao, who smiled and thanked him. At the moment their hands touched, Chang Jin's heart skipped a beat. Chang Jin shyly lowered his head. By then, Lu Dao had already taken the cup, drinking the water in one go, looking quite satisfied. Chang Jin couldn't help but feel moved again, sighing that the other person still looked as good as ever drinking water. The other person drank all the water he poured and he asked if they felt uncomfortable. The other person stated they were in good health but still couldn't remember anything. Then, Lu Dao patted his thigh and asked Cheng Jin if he minded sitting on his lap. This action left the other person somewhat puzzled, but the other person obediently complied. He then asked if they were married, to which the other person shyly confirmed. Lu Dao asked Cheng Jin when they got married, and Cheng Jin obediently answered, 7 years ago. Lu Dao was somewhat surprised that they had been married for so long. He asked if they had children, but the word, children, ultimately wasn't spoken. He quickly recalled Fei Li mentioned that his grandmother was his only blood relative in the world, guessing they probably didn't have children. He asked them why they didn't have children, and they hesitated and explained that they didn't want children for the time being. Lu Dao immediately sensed that they were lying and asked why they were not in a hurry, which stunned them. Cheng Jin hurriedly made an excuse to change the subject, suggesting he would bring something for Lu Dao to eat, and left in a rush, because he really didn't have the courage to tell Lu Dao about their past and the foolish things he had done. He fell in love with Lu Dao at first sight 7 years ago, and as soon as he confidently sent a letter, he was rejected. After being rejected, Cheng Jin was very angry. After all, as a tycoon's son, he could have anything he wanted. So, he used his financial power, but this only pushed Lu Dao further away. Lu Dao felt he was being bullied because of his power and expressed a strong dislike for his actions. But he still didn't give up, even if he couldn't win Lu Dao's heart. He wanted to have him as a person. Under the pressure from his father and brother, Lu Dao had no choice, and they successfully got married. However, Lu Dao still left him to join the battlefield. Only then did he realize that you can't force someone's heart. Cheng Jin brought 2 bowls of food. He silently made up his mind. Before the other regained his memory, he would take good care of him and not ask for anything else. When he opened the door, he found that the other had already gotten up. He quickly asked if his health was okay. Lu Dao had originally planned to be polite, but before he could say he was fine, he changed his mind. He immediately sat on the bed and said there was a problem, then cutely expressed his need to use the restroom. Cheng Jin blushed a bit but was more bewildered. Lu Dao crossed his arms and pitifully expressed that his limbs were weak and he couldn't support himself to go to the bathroom alone. Cheng Jin shyly held his arm and stammered that he would help him to the bathroom. Lu Dao directly put Cheng Jin's hand on his waist, reminding him to support his waist. Seeing Cheng Jin's shyly lowered head, Lu Dao felt a bit smug. Cheng Jin helped Lu Dao to the bathroom, reminded him he could go ahead, and planned to wait outside the door. Unexpectedly, Lu Dao grabbed him, asking him to wait, saying his arms were weak. Cheng Jin wasn't fooled. After all, Lu Dao had just grabbed him easily. But before he could finish speaking, Lu Dao leaned close to his ear, expressing he needed his help, and Cheng Jin hesitantly agreed. Seeing Cheng Jin's shy expression, Lu Dao couldn't help but be puzzled. He had been married to such a cute little wife for 7 years and they still had no children. He began to wonder if he wasn't quite capable in certain aspects. Lu Dao reminded Cheng Jin to hold on to him, and Cheng Jin shyly extended an arm towards him. He felt the urge to kiss him. Cheng Jin stole a glance and stammeringly asked Lu Dao if he was done. With a smile on his face, Lu Dao looked at him and said he was done, then put both hands on Cheng Jin's shoulders, leaving Cheng Jin a bit at a loss. Cheng Jin helped Lu Dao to bed and quietly said he was going to wash his hands. While washing his hands, Cheng Jin thought that the amnesiac Lu Dao didn't dislike him, and he hesitated whether to take the opportunity to repair their relationship, but he quickly dismissed this idea. After all, it was only 6 months, and he worried that once Lu Dao regained his memory after 6 months and learned about his actions, he would be disgusted to the point of wanting to vomit. By then, trying to leave a good impression on him would be even harder. Thinking of this, he clenched his fists, feeling that they would eventually divorce and separate, so it would be better to do it gracefully. After leaving the restroom, he immediately told Lu Dao he was going back first, while Lu Dao was still looking at the light screen in his hand. Hearing that he was leaving, Lu Dao looked up and asked if he wasn't staying there. He confirmed this and reminded Lu Dao to ring for the nurse if he felt any discomfort. The light screen in his hand was also convenient for contacting others. Lu Dao swiped twice on the light screen and found that his primary emergency contact wasn't Cheng Jin, so he asked Cheng Jin why. Cheng Jin just smiled and explained that they didn't contact each other often. Then he changed the topic, using the excuse of missing the last train to leave first. But Lu Dao grabbed Cheng Jin and asked why there wasn't a farewell kiss, which left Cheng Jin at a loss. He said, feeling wronged, that he had looked up how partners interact online, and a farewell kiss was one of them. Cheng Jin blushed with shyness, but felt a pang in his heart because a farewell kiss represents love, longing, and the hope of reunion. The old Lu Dao didn't have these feelings for him, and even the few times they kissed. He lowered his head, lifted Lu Dao's face, and prepared to kiss him. Although he knew the current Lu Dao wasn't the real Lu Dao, he still couldn't help but be moved. Lu Dao caught Cheng Jin by the neck and pulled him into his arms, kissing him until he was satisfied before letting go. Cheng Jin wiped his mouth, and Lu Dao asked if he didn't like it. Cheng Jin's face flushed with embarrassment, planning to beat a retreat as he left. Pondering why he felt unsettled, it was just not being accustomed to Lu Dao's behavior towards him. Lu Dao's recent initiative made his heart race. Covering his mouth, he ran away quickly. Cheng Jin fled because he had grown used to Lu Dao's indifference, so much so that when his father went bankrupt, he didn't dare seek Lu Dao's help. 2 years ago, when his father went bankrupt, he humbly sought a job in the fashion basement, but Andy put on airs, indicating that even if there was a job, he might not be up to it and suggested he seek help from Lu Dao. Cheng Jin fell into deep thought. He felt that if Lu Dao heard about his family's bankruptcy, he might even applaud and take the opportunity to divorce him. Not wanting to leave Lu Dao, Cheng Jin sincerely expressed his willingness to learn and asked Andy to teach him. Andy reluctantly agreed but also reminded him that if he couldn't learn, he would have to leave. But he also reminded him that if he couldn't learn, he would have to leave. Cheng Jin immediately expressed his gratitude to Andy. Andy gestured for him to sit down while telling him not to be too formal. Cheng Jin nervously picked up the needle and began mending the clothes. Andy was guiding him from the side. However, before he even started sewing, he pricked his finger and blood immediately came out. Andy asked him what happened. While sucking the blood from his finger, he replied that it was nothing. Andy reminded him that when making real clothing accessories, he must not let any blood get on them, or it would all be ruined. He practiced his needlework even the next day. Although he was very focused, it was inevitable that his hands became full of pricks. His father fell ill and needed expensive treatment, and relying solely on his brother's work was too difficult. He knew he had to become independent as soon as possible to avoid becoming a burden on the family. After working tirelessly, he presented the sewn clothes to Andy, who approved of his work. The other party handed him a check for 1,000 yuan, which he accepted with hands covered in band-aids, and expressed his gratitude to Andy. Although it was only 8,000 yuan, Cheng Jin felt very happy. It was not only his first earnings but also meant a week's worth of medicine for his father. Cheng Jin hoped that his efforts would also change Lu Dao's view of him. At this moment, he stood at the hospital room door with a pot of soup, knocked with some anticipation. But the one who opened the door was a blonde man. He was dressed in a military uniform and looked very friendly. Cheng Jin couldn't help but be stunned and silently admired the man's beauty in his heart. The next second, Lu Dao's light cough made him realize he was being somewhat rude. He quickly apologized to the blonde man, who generously forgave Cheng Jin and revealed his identity. He was Lu Dao's subordinate, Ai Shui, and also Lu Dao's best partner. Lu Dao was also his lifesaver. Through this, Cheng Jin learned that Lu Dao was severely injured saving Ai Shui. Coupling this with the keyword, best partner, he immediately guessed that the other person was Lieutenant General Rieger. Ai Shui was also curious about Cheng Jin's identity but was interrupted before he could ask. The other party inquired if his full name was Ai Shui Rieger, to which he affirmed. Rieger was indeed his surname, one of the renowned native families on the imperial planet. Cheng Jin had seen many Rieger family members, who were all burly men with full beards, which is why he didn't mind his relationship with Lu Dao. But seeing Ai Shui looking so good, he immediately realized he was wrong and felt a bit disappointed. He quickly adjusted his mood and generously introduced his name and his status as Lu Dao's partner. Ai Shui said he already guessed his identity and pointed out that Lu Dao was becoming impatient because they had been talking for too long. Cheng Jin carried the soup over to Lu Dao, apologizing for the wait. Lu Dao blushed a little, feeling that indeed he had waited quite a while. He reached out and tugged on the corner of Cheng Jin's shirt, slightly aggrieved, complaining that he was late, then haughtily asked where the promised soup was. These little expressions made Cheng Jin's heart blossom, like opening the door to a new world. Ai Shui also didn't expect Lu Dao to show such expressions. Cheng Jin opened the lid of the thermos box, saying he brought the promised soup and that it could be drunk now. He then asked Ai Shui if he would like to try some. Seeing Lu Dao's protective stance over the food, Ai Shui quickly declined. But he soon came up with a bad idea. He smiled brightly and immediately changed his tune, saying he wanted to try the fish soup made by Cheng Jin. Lu Dao looked displeased and seemed very jealous. Not far away, the two were chatting and laughing. Cheng Jin handed the fish soup he prepared to Ai Shui, and also reminded her to be careful of the hot soup. Ai Shui immediately started drinking the soup, and Lu Dao also got to taste the soup he had been longing for. Both of them showed satisfied smiles, feeling that the fish soup tasted very good. Cheng Jin carefully asked Lu Dao if it really tasted good. Seeing him nod and affirm it, he felt relieved and looked at him with a smile while he drank the soup. Ai Shui finished the fish soup in one go and put down the bowl, planning to leave. After all, his general didn't really want him to stay there anymore. Chang Jin was somewhat at a loss, while Lu Dao gestured for him to leave quickly. Ai Shui mentioned that although Lu Dao doesn't remember him now, he finds Lu Dao cuter than before. Hearing the word cute, Chang Jin became a bit restless, suspecting that Ai Shui also liked Lu Dao. But his thoughts were soon interrupted by Ai Shui, who wanted to visit their home after Lu Dao was discharged. He immediately agreed. Ai Shui said goodbye to Chang Jin and also bid farewell to his good partner, saying he would visit again next time. Chang Jin happily cleaned up the bowls and utensils. Lu Dao stared at Chang Jin intently, asking why he agreed to let Ai Shui visit their home and questioning if he wanted to cheat. Chang Jin was so startled that the spoon in his hand fell to the ground. He immediately explained that he had no intention of cheating and that the person Ai Shui wanted to visit was not him. Lu Dao said he did not agree to Ai Shui's request. Chang Jin angrily continued tidying up, saying that it would be hard to refuse since the other person had asked. He also asked how Lu Dao knew the word cheating. Chang Jin thought that if someone had to cheat between them, it would definitely be Lu Dao. Lu Dao brought up the light screen, saying the doctor advised him to study more, and what he was reading was the empire's marriage laws, along with things about affairs and cheating. Chang Jin hadn't expected him to be interested in these topics and felt a bit embarrassed. Lu Dao smiled, thinking there might be things Chang Jin could teach him. He held Chang Jin's hand and said there were still many things he didn't understand. This indicates that he still has many unanswered questions. He hugged the other person again, saying he wanted to ask for advice. Chang Jin looked at Lu Dao somewhat shyly, but her heart was bursting with joy. On the day Lu Dao was discharged, Fei Li drove Chang Jin and Lu Dao back home. Chang Jin expressed her gratitude to him, and he said it was his duty. Chang Jin showed Lu Dao their house, which was allocated to them by the government after their marriage. Later, as Lu Dao's title was elevated, the house was expanded for free. At this moment, Fei Li suddenly stopped Chang Jin. He told her that Lu Dao had asked him to order a car 3 months ago, and it was a private car. This caught Chang Jin's attention. Because of his military rank, Lu Dao couldn't own a private car. He didn't know who the car was for. Fei Li said the car had arrived, but Lu Dao hadn't specified who it was for. He wanted to get Chang Jin's consent to temporarily keep the car at their house. Chang Jin cautiously asked Fei Li, wanting to know if he had someone in mind for the car. Chang Jin felt a bit disappointed as he entered the door with a heavy heart. Looking up, he saw Chang Cheng circling around Lu Dao, constantly expressing its longing and concern for him. Chang Cheng said that after hearing about Lu Dao's accident, it secretly cried twice and was very relieved that Lu Dao came back safely. Lu Dao asked Chang Jin if the robot's name was Chang Cheng. As Chang Cheng welcomed Chang Jin back, it explained that its previous owner had named it. Chang Jin squatted down, touched Chang Cheng's head, and thanked it. Lu Dao heard the previous owner and thought Chang Cheng was secondhand. Chang Jin explained that it was a wedding gift from his brother. Lu Dao felt that Chang Cheng talked a lot. Chang Jin couldn't help but laugh, explaining that Chang Cheng liked handsome guys and would talk more when he saw them. Lu Dao immediately leaned in and asked Chang Jin if he was being complimented for being handsome. Chang Jin shyly turned his face away, indicating it was true. Lu Dao was indeed very handsome. After Chang Cheng finished packing the luggage, he immediately sought praise from Lu Dao and then proudly stated that he had also tidied up their bedroom, inviting them to take a look. Lu Dao noticed that he and Chang Jin were sleeping in separate rooms and asked Chang Jin why. Chang Jin just lowered his head without explaining. Lu Dao asked Chang Jin if he was unwilling to sleep with him. Chang Jin was a bit at a loss, but soon thought of an excuse, saying they slept separately because he had a bad sleeping posture. Lu Dao was obviously not very satisfied with this excuse. Chang Jin, a bit embarrassed, said that he not only kicked the quilt but also snored and ground his teeth, and he was used to sleeping alone. Before he could finish speaking, Lu Dao reached out and touched his head, saying he didn't mind these behaviors. Chang Jin was surprised that the other party would touch his head and say such things. Lu Dao held Chang Jin's hand, reiterating that he didn't mind Chang Jin kicking the quilt, grinding his teeth, or even snoring. He told him word by word that he wanted to sleep with him and asked if he was unwilling. Chang Jin was a bit shy but overjoyed. He said he wasn't unwilling and went up to hug Lu Dao. How could he be unwilling for something he had dreamed of? Lu Dao was very satisfied with the bedroom. It was just as he imagined and looked very cozy. He casually picked up a small container and asked Chang Jin if it was a vase. Chang Jin shook his head and explained that it was just a small container for holding things, but only he knew that it once held a luminous pearl, which he sold to pay for his father's medical treatment. Lu Dao thought the container's shape was very special and asked where Chang Jin bought it. Chang Jin said he made it himself. Lu Dao was a bit surprised after hearing this. Cheng Jin, somewhat nervous, said that if Lu Dao needed scarves or gloves, he could knit those too. Unbeknownst to Cheng Jin, this action struck a chord with Lu Dao, who found him very adorable and gently touched his face. Lu Dao praised his skill, noting that people from the imperial planet rarely used handcrafted items. After saying this, he even gave Cheng Jin a kiss. Cheng Jin didn't expect Lu Dao to have researched this, but Lu Dao said it was just casual browsing, and then he embraced Cheng Jin's waist. Lu Dao touched Cheng Jin's face and asked if they hadn't been intimate before. Cheng Jin, a bit shy, still answered that they had been intimate before. Lu Dao moved closer with a smile and asked why Cheng Jin was nervous if that was the case, wondering if he was afraid of him. Cheng Jin was not afraid of Lu Dao, in his view. Something more frightening would be if the person he loved didn't love him back and even despised him for many years. He proactively embraced Lu Dao, who felt that Cheng Jin indeed had experience and expressed a sense of familiarity and warmth with him. Lu Dao found it unsurprising, since Cheng Jin was his husband. Lu Dao scooped him up, indicating that he should fulfill his duties as a wife, then put him on the bed. Just as he was about to get intimate, he was stopped. Cheng Jin skillfully opened the drawer beside the bed and took out a box of condoms. He handed the condoms to his partner, who was somewhat confused, not understanding why contraception was necessary between partners. The reason they hadn't had children after 7 years of marriage was found. Cheng Jin felt that at his age of 25, he was still young and not in a hurry to have children. Lu Dao thought it was all an excuse, definitely because Cheng Jin didn't love him enough. This completely broke Cheng Jin's defenses, and he hugged Lu Dao, explaining that no one loved Lu Dao more than he did. Lu Dao touched Cheng Jin's head, asking if he was ready to have children, mentioning that he had an 8-month holiday and even suggested they should enjoy it. Holding Cheng Jin's face, Lu Dao said he could apply for more leave. He indicated that he could apply for another leave and once again asked the other person what they thought about the proposal of having a child. Cheng Jin held Lu Dao's hand, knowing that the reason the other person was saying this was entirely because they had lost their memory. If the other person regained their memory, they would definitely think that he had used tricks to seduce them. Agreeing to this proposal would only add to the suffering of a new life. With this thought, he buried his head in the other person's embrace, knowing that they didn't love him. But soon, he adjusted his mindset, smiling and telling the other person to wait a little longer, saying that when he's a year older, he won't be afraid anymore. The other person was very satisfied with this explanation and agreed readily, saying they would listen to him. Cheng Jin was suddenly grabbed by Lu Dao and laid onto the bed. The other person leaned over with a smile, looking at him without saying a word. He was a bit dazed when the other person suddenly looked serious, saying he used to be very bad. He hugged the other person tightly, saying they weren't bad, he just wasn't good enough. He then felt undeserving, not worthy of having a good relationship. Cheng Jin touched Lu Dao's cheek, telling him it was okay, he was ready. The two of them instantly fell in love, leaving a rabbit beside the river of love and chaos. The rabbit was struck by their deep affection, shedding tears of a single dog. At this moment, Cheng Jin blushed a little and signaled to dim the lights. The lights dimmed immediately, but this action made Lu Dao very displeased, who immediately had the lights turned up to full brightness. The light shone directly into his eyes, making it difficult for him to keep them open. The lines on his body were also clearly illuminated by the light. The other party asked somewhat angrily why he wouldn't let him see his face clearly. He tried to cover his face with his hand and explained that it was because the other party had previously refused to look at him. Lu Dao moved Cheng Jin's hand away and complained that he had been a jerk before. Cheng Jin didn't think Lu Dao was a jerk, but before he could finish his sentence, he was lifted up in a hug. The other party expressed that from now on, he wanted to take a good look at him every time. After saying that, he didn't forget to ask for his opinion. He immediately agreed. After some affection, Lu Dao was taking a shower, while Cheng Jin, holding his waist, turned on the light screen. He saw a box of children's fart-separating medicine, which required a balance of 15,000. He broke into a sweat, but considering that having a child would be unfair to the three of them, he gritted his teeth and still clicked to buy. At this moment, the bathroom door made a noise, scaring him into quickly turning off the light screen. Lu Dao had finished showering and came out. Although he was wearing a bathrobe, one could still vaguely see his very resilient physique. He asked Cheng Jin if he was tired while lifting the blanket. Although Cheng Jin didn't say a word, he vigorously shook his head and then dived into his arms, indicating he wanted to talk a little more with him. At this moment, Lu Dao suddenly mentioned he had a question he had been curious about for a long time. He quickly asked Cheng Jin how they first met. This question immediately made Cheng Jin sweat profusely. This time, Cheng Jin didn't plan to make up another excuse. Instead, he directly told Lu Dao that once his memory returns, he would remember everything. But Lu Dao didn't accept this explanation. He wanted to know right away. Cheng Jin felt a bit disappointed and could only explain that at that time, Lu Dao was still a student at the main military academy, and he was just an ordinary high school student. The main academy arranged regular relaxation days for students each month, allowing external students to enter and play. One time, a classmate took him inside, coinciding with a basketball game, and Lu Dao was one of the players. The classmate was using binoculars to watch Lu Dao and praised him, saying Lu Dao not only excelled in academics but also had great physical fitness. He was a key development target for the school. After saying this, the classmate couldn't help but admire Lu Dao's looks, which sparked Chang Jin's interest, prompting him to take a closer look. However, they were too far from the court to see clearly, so he borrowed the binoculars from his classmate. The classmate reminded him it was half-time, so there might not be much to see, but he still found Lu Dao. Through the binoculars, he saw Lu Dao drinking water, sweat dripping from his cheeks to his neck. Lu Dao wiped his sweat with a towel, and just these small actions were enough to make his heart race and face flush. Hearing this, Lu Dao concluded that Chang Jin must have fallen in love with him at first sight. He eagerly wanted to know what happened next and asked Chang Jin if he pursued him actively, and then Lu Dao fell in love with him at first sight too, leading to them quickly falling in love and getting married right after graduation. Seeing Lu Dao, Chang Jin couldn't help but imagine a whole novel. He felt somewhat distressed, not understanding why the other party would think that way. In the aquarium, Lu Dao propped his chin, indicating he found Chang Jin very cute. Chang Jin felt flattered and wanted to confirm again if the other party really thought that way, but instead, he was asked about the plot development. He could only make up a reason, explaining that Lu Dao had rejected him initially, perhaps thinking he was too young. He caressed Lu Dao's cheek, explaining that it was only after his persistent pursuit that the other party accepted his feelings. But he knew it was because his family threatened Lu Dao with his grandmother's surgery that he agreed to marry him. This also led to his grandmother only being able to use a wheelchair after the surgery. Lu Dao asked him if he felt aggrieved. He immediately denied it, although he now realized his mistake. He could no longer make amends. Lu Dao moved closer, feeling that the other party wasn't telling the truth, his eyes clearly red. He didn't understand why the other party loved to cry so much. Then he embraced him, feeling somewhat heartbroken as the other cried. He touched his forehead to the other's, making the other feel a bit distressed. He looked at him, not only calling him baby, but also saying he was the best. While pinching his chin, they quickly fell back in love. At this moment, Chang Jin, while yawning, asked Lu Dao if there were guests at home. Lu Dao, propping his chin, casually explained they were colleagues visiting to check on the patient, catching Chang Jin's attention. Chang Jin's attention was quickly drawn to the grapes on the table. He happily picked up a grape and found it to be the particularly delicious honey grape. Lu Dao asked if he liked it. He raised a peeled grape, intending for Lu Dao to taste it, and remarked that the flavor was really good. Lu Dao ate the grape Chang Jin fed him and was asked if the taste was good. He licked Chang Jin's fingers and softly replied with an Chang Jin cautiously asked Lu Dao if he could take some for his father. Lu Dao immediately agreed and suggested going with him to visit the hospital. Chang Jin felt flattered, as he hadn't expected Lu Dao to accompany him on the visit. Lu Dao, however, thought visiting the hospital was a normal courtesy, especially since it was his wife's father. He felt obligated to visit. Chang Jin waved his hand, indicating that his father's condition had stabilized, and reminded Lu Dao to rest well at home. He planned to go alone, mentioning that Fei Li had lent him a new car, making it convenient for him to go. Lu Dao stared at Chang Jin, feeling that something was off. He suspected Chang Jin was trying hard to stop him because he was going to see an ex-boyfriend. Chang Jin quickly waved his hands in denial, insisting he had no ex-boyfriend. Lu Dao stepped forward, grabbed Chang Jin's hand, and said that since there was no ex-boyfriend, he should let him visit the hospital. Chang Jin guessed that after Lu Dao regained his memory, he wouldn't mind this matter, so he agreed. By then, Lu Dao had already changed clothes and was waiting outside. Chang Jin saw the vehicle behind him. He felt the car matched his aesthetic perfectly, but unfortunately, it wasn't for him. Lu Dao took the things he needed to bring from Chang Jin's hand. He reminded him to get in the car. Soon, the car lights came on, and they drove away from the villa. Chang Jin introduced various vehicles on the road to Lu Dao, such as some small ships. He mentioned a building not far away. Although it was called the World Trade Center, he spoke enthusiastically about it, while the other person just quietly listened to him. Suddenly, Lu Dao wrapped his arm around Chang Jin's waist, pulling him into his embrace, and praised him with a smile for knowing so much. The compliment made Chang Jin a bit self-conscious and he stammered, saying it wasn't true. Chang Jin looked up and realized they had already arrived at the hospital. Lu Dao thought the hospital environment looked pretty good, and Chang Jin agreed, considering the price. Chang Jin's father was sitting on the hospital bed reading a book when Chang Jin suddenly pushed the door open and entered. His father happily introduced Lu Dao to him. Lu Dao stood there holding things, looking very proper. He looked at Chang Jin's father. Although he had no memory, he instinctively felt uneasy, sensing that his relationship with Chang Jin's father wasn't good before. He stared at Chang Jin, making him feel a bit guilty, and he averted his gaze elsewhere. Lu Dao wanted to call Chang Jin's father, Dad, but the word felt awkward in his mouth and he couldn't say it. Chang Jin reminded him that he didn't have to call him Dad, as he used to call him Mr. Chang. Only then did Lu Dao breathe a sigh of relief and called him Mr. Chang. Chang Jin's father chuckled softly, realizing that Lu Dao truly had amnesia, otherwise he wouldn't have come to see him. Chang Jin squatted by his bed, asking about his condition today. He said he was fine but noticed Chang Jin looked thinner, suspecting he hadn't been eating well lately. Chang Jin smiled at his father, saying he had been eating well and even gained some weight recently. Suddenly, he remembered he had brought grapes for him, and turned to take them out of the bag Lu Dao was holding. The other party was very happy to see the honey grapes he brought. Chang Jin's side looked very harmonious and warm, like a father and son. Lu Dao felt a bit jealous of Chang Jin's father. He didn't expect Chang Jin to smile so happily at someone else. Chang Jin's father, with a smile on his face, said there was no tea to serve the guest, so he asked Chang Jin to go outside and get a cup of hot water for Lu Dao. Chang Jin happily went out with the cup. Seeing Chang Jin leave, Lu Dao asked Chang Jin's father if there was anything he wanted to say to him alone. The other party expressed that besides hoping he could take good care of Chang Jin, there were no other requests. He also mentioned that they hadn't seen each other for 7 years. When the incident first happened, the other party hoped he could help the Chang family, but he ignored it. Lu Dao explained that he couldn't help as he investigated the Chang family's case, which was a major incident. Fortunately, the Chang family was wealthy, and no one was injured, so they weren't sent to serve time. Chang Jin's father, somewhat helpless, intended to let the matter rest, only hoping the other party could be kind to Chang Jin in the future. He explained that it wasn't now, but after the memory was restored, the other party said nothing. Lu Dao was very aware that, given his personality, he should quickly find out about his marital status, but he was somewhat afraid of the truth behind it. After returning home, Chang Jin told Lu Dao to rest first. He planned to finish sewing the dress in the studio before sleeping. However, the word dress caught the other's attention. Feeling a bit guilty, he explained that it was one of his hobbies. He then opened the studio door, intending to show the other person. The other person, seeing a row of women's dresses, couldn't help but ask if his hobby was sewing women's dresses. Chang Jin explained that he could also make some money on the side, and assured Lu Dao that he would finish soon and then accompany him. Lu Dao patted Chang Jin's head, telling him he could ask for money if needed, as his account still had plenty. But Chang Jin immediately refused without a second thought. Lu Dao was a bit puzzled and then suggested that partners could open a joint account. Chang Jin did not elaborate much on this, only saying that he could manage. Chang Jin held Lu Dao's hand, hoping he could trust him and promised to speak up if he really faced difficulties, wanting to solve it with his own capabilities and hoping Lu Dao would agree. However, Lu Dao did not verbally agree. But the other person didn't immediately agree, so he hesitantly called him husband. This call of husband instantly touched the other's heart. The other person agreed to his request, sat down to wait for him, and checked some information. The two happily made the decision. Chang Jin also sat down. He took out the finished blue crystal accessories, planning to sew them onto the dress. The remaining blue crystals also needed to be sewn onto the dress. He hoped the customer would like it as he sewed. While Chang Jin was sewing the dress, Lu Dao was sitting beside him checking information. They were busy with their own tasks without interfering with each other. By this time, Chang Jin had finished and stood up to stretch. Lu Dao hugged him from behind, massaged his waist, handed him a glass of water, and praised his focus. He asked if the other had finished checking the information. The other replied that there was a lot he wanted to know, and it would take some time to read through it. He comforted the other not to worry, saying that once all the toxins in the brain were gone, he would remember everything. He picked up the newly sewn dress, held it up against himself, and asked if it looked good. The other said the dress looked great and suited him well. Chang Jin was very happy to hear the compliment. He couldn't wear the dress but loved the blue crystals on it. He checked the size and number of blue crystals, hung the dress up, and considered it finished. After taking a shower, Chang Jin dried his face with a towel. He went to the bed and asked Lu Dao what he was looking at. Upon closer look, he realized the other person was watching something steamy. He covered his face shyly, unable to say a word. The next second, his waist was caught by the other person, who suggested they learn together. Leaning close to his ear, they remarked that the protagonist's figure was similar to his, but not as soft, and said something VIP that couldn't be heard. Chang Jin hesitantly said it should be possible. Soon, he was laid on the bed by Lu Dao, who stated that practice brings true knowledge. Lu Dao assured him that he'd try hard to increase the chances of having a child, but Cheng Jin had already taken measures to ensure they wouldn't. Seeing Cheng Jin still asleep, Lu Dao couldn't help but gently stroke his cheek. Cheng Jin seemed to feel his touch and nuzzled against his hand. As Lu Dao was about to leave, Cheng Jin woke up. Rubbing his eyes, he asked where the other person was going. While dressing, the other person explained they had to go to the military department to handle paperwork and check the office. Cheng Jin asked when they'd return. The other person smiled at him, saying they'd be back soon, pinching his chin and telling him to wait obediently at home. Cheng Jin realized it had been a long time since he contacted his brother, so he opened the screen and made a video call to him, but nobody answered. He guessed his brother might be busy. He felt a bit down and was about to hang up and wait for his brother to call back once he was free, but the video suddenly connected. Cheng Shu looked a bit flustered and asked Cheng Jin why he was calling. The other person seemed very happy, saying he just wanted to know how he was doing, and asked why his work uniform had changed to a suit. He explained that he had switched to a job that was easier than the factory. Cheng Jin was relieved to hear that his brother had found a more relaxed job, but then started blaming himself, thinking he was useless and didn't need to do all this. He felt that his brother had changed a lot. Cheng Jin was very happy and planned to invite his brother over to his house, to which his brother agreed to come over the next morning. Cheng Jin was still thinking about what dishes to prepare when Cheng Shu accidentally let out a breath. Cheng Jin immediately noticed something was off with his brother, but the other person said he had something to deal with and hurriedly hung up the call. Yan Qi had both hands resting on the headboard. He didn't expect Cheng Shu to actually manage to hold back. He reached up, grabbed the other's hair, and pressed him onto the bed. Looking smug, he thought the other should have answered Cheng Jin directly. After speaking, he leaned close to the other's ear and said things that even VIPs couldn't hear. Yan Qi, smugly adjusting his bangs, asked Cheng Shu if he was very kind, since he hadn't embarrassed him in front of Cheng Jin. Yan Qi continued to taunt, knowing that Cheng Shu was like a pillar in front of Cheng Jin, but this pillar now had to go against his own heart to gather enough for his father's medical expenses. He thought he was too kind, otherwise, Cheng Jin would have surely seen this spectacular performance. Before he could finish speaking, Cheng Shu silenced him with a kiss. At this moment, Lu Dao had just returned from the military department, and Cheng Jin happily greeted him. But Lu Dao hurriedly pulled him away, leaving him a bit bewildered. Lu Dao dragged Cheng Jin into a room, not only turning off the lights, but also drawing the curtains. In this situation, Cheng Jin couldn't help but misunderstand, thinking that Lu Dao was going to pull him into bed for some intimacy again, which made his heart race. Lu Dao extended his tightly clasped hands in front of Cheng Jin, telling him that he saw something in the office today and thought he might like it, so he brought it back. As he spoke, he opened his hands to reveal a luminous pearl. Cheng Jin immediately recognized the azure blue. Lu Dao asked if he liked it, but Cheng Jin fell into deep thought. Because this azure blue was the one he had asked his brother to sell, yet somehow it ended up in Lu Dao's office. Seeing Cheng Jin silent, Lu Dao asked if he didn't like the luminous pearl. Cheng Jin smiled brightly, expressing that he liked it very much. He took the pearl and saw a flaw on it, further confirming that it was the one he had before. Lu Dao was somewhat dissatisfied with Cheng Jin's reaction, thinking it wasn't the attitude one should have towards something they like. So he pinched Cheng Jin's face and asked if this was really the attitude of liking something. Seeing this, Cheng Jin immediately threw himself into Lu Dao's arms, exclaiming that he really liked it. Only then did Lu Dao show a satisfied smile and thoroughly enjoyed Cheng Jin's affection, directly kissing his cheek. He directly kissed the other person's cheek, expressed his thanks verbally, and then began to hum a song as he planned to put away the night pearl. He placed the night pearl into a container he had woven earlier. Lu Dao couldn't help but marvel at how perfectly it fit, as if it was made to measure. However, he didn't know that the container was originally made by Cheng Jin specifically for the night pearl. Cheng Jin suddenly remembered that Cheng Shu would visit him tomorrow, so he asked Lu Dao if he wanted to go out. Lu Dao didn't quite understand and immediately explained there was no other implication, suggesting if he didn't go out, they could chat together. The other person seemed a bit distracted at that moment. Images flashed through Lu Dao's mind, Cheng Jin pulling his arm, pleading with him to stay at home to greet the family together, but he coldly refused and even stated that the other person's family affairs had nothing to do with him. The other person looked somewhat despondent, trying to use marriage to keep him, but this only angered him more. He rudely shook off the other person's hand, feeling that they were the last person qualified to talk about marriage. Lu Dao was jerked back to reality when Cheng Jin loudly called out his name. The other person looked at him with worried eyes. He could only cough lightly as a cover, and then he took the other person's hand, telling them he wouldn't go out. Only then did the other person show a happy smile. He pulled the other person into his arms but was still thinking about the scenes that had just flashed in his mind, considering them to be his memories. He hadn't expected that before his amnesia, he had been so indifferent toward Chang Jin. Seeing the happy Chang Jin in front of him, he was puzzled about what their relationship had deteriorated into. As the doorbell rings, Chang Jin runs to open the door excitedly, thinking his brother has arrived a bit too early. However, to his surprise, it's not his brother but Ai Shui. He's a bit curious about why she has come. Ai Shui, holding a big gift box, expresses that her family has prepared a thank you gift to show their gratitude for Lu Dao saving her life. Chang Jin didn't expect her family to be so warm-hearted. He awkwardly invites her inside and goes to take the gift box, but she reminds him that the gift is somewhat heavy. Lu Dao takes the gift box directly, showing off his boyfriend's strength in front of Chang Jin. Chang Jin asks Ai Shui if she would like something to drink, and from the options he provides, she picks a hot cocoa with double sugar. At this moment, Chang runs over with the hot cocoa, calling Ai Shui, "Beautiful sir." While handing over the drink to Ai Shui, Chang introduces himself, mentioning that he likes the singer Tim. Ai Shui says he also likes Tim and even shares his favorite song from Tim. They start chatting, and Chang Jin watches them with a smile from a distance. While Chang Jin is making soup in the kitchen, Lu Dao comes over with an unhappy face. He asks what's wrong, and it turns out Lu Dao is jealous, feeling that Chang has betrayed him. Chang Jin is amused by his childish jealousy, explaining that Chang has always liked handsome guys, but his favorite is still Lu Dao. This statement catches Lu Dao's attention, prompting him to ask for more details. Chang Jin explains that Chang is a robot with a kinship bond program and contains his genes. Emotionally, there's also a subtle connection between them. Because Chang Jin likes Lu Dao the most, so does Chang, even more than Chang Jin himself. Suddenly, Lu Dao realizes something is off and asks Chang Jin if he also likes handsome guys. Chang Jin immediately waves his hands to clarify, stating that he's an exception to this. He leaned on the other's shoulder, while the other stutteringly expressed that he only liked him. The two were in the kitchen, ready to try the newly made soup, when Ai Shui suddenly appeared. Joking that they were hiding in the kitchen eating delicious food, and had neglected him, the guest who had specially come to visit. Chang Jin hurriedly explained that they were just letting Lu Dao taste the soup first, then asked Ai Shui if he wanted a bowl too. Ai Shui was naturally very willing. Suddenly, the doorbell rang and Chang Jin went to open the door happily. Ai Shui was guessing who could make Chang Jin so excited. Lu Dao directly solved the mystery, it was Chang Jin's brother. Ai Shui immediately said he had guessed as much, while also teasing Lu Dao's expression, feeling that Lu Dao seemed to be afraid that he would steal Chang Jin away. He remembered that Lu Dao never used to talk about his partner. He thought their relationship was not good, as partner was never mentioned. This directly caught Lu Dao's attention. Ai Shui affirmed this, saying that he had been partners with Lu Dao for 3 years, yet had never seen Chang Jin. Lu Dao caught the keyword again. Ai Shui actually called Chang Jin, Little Jin. He had to take it seriously, but the other party said it was just to avoid being estranged, and even dragged him to meet the big uncle brother. Soon, someone greeted Ai Shui and called him, Brother Shui. This person was his cousin Yan Qi. Yan Qi extended his hand generously to say hello, while Chang Shu seemed somewhat awkward. Chang Jin did not expect Ai Shui and Yan Qi to have this relationship. Ai Shui explained that he and Yan Qi were cousins, and Yan Qi should now have secured the position of the richest man. He also introduced Chang Shu to Lu Dao, saying that he often heard about Chang Shu from Yan Qi. Yan Qi took the initiative to explain that he and Chang Shu had grown up together as childhood sweethearts. Lu Dao immediately hugged Chang Jin, declaring his ownership, stating that the other was now a married man. Yan Qi immediately spread his hands, feeling that this matter had nothing to do with him. Chang Shu noticed that Lu Dao's attitude towards Chang Jin had indeed changed significantly from before. Despite Yan Qi showing no interest in Chang Jin at all, Lu Dao still looked at him with hostile eyes. Lu Dao immediately turned into a wronged puppy. Chang Jin comforted them to take their seats first and mentioned that the meal would be ready soon. Chang sensibly poured water for everyone, while Chang Jin pulled Chang Shu into the kitchen together. He asked Chang Shu if he was doing well, whether he could have enough to eat and wear, and rest on time. He looked at the other party with great concern, worried that the other party would not be able to hold on. Worried that the other party couldn't bear it any longer, she threw herself into the other's arms. The other party was obviously a bit overwhelmed, especially since they had just been agitated by Yan Qi yesterday. Chang Shu touched Chang Jin's head, indicating that he was doing very well and told the other to not worry. But the other still couldn't stop worrying about him and even noticed that he had lost weight. He patted the other's back, reiterating that he was indeed doing well, wanting the other to feel at ease. Cheng Jin suddenly remembered that there was serious business to inquire about, so he asked who the buyer of Kang Lan was and why it appeared with Lu Dao. His brother explained that it was an online transaction where the buyer chose to purchase anonymously, and a special machine was sent for the pickup, so he didn't know the buyer's information. Cheng Jin immediately became excited, guessing that Lu Dao was helping him behind the scenes. However, Cheng Shu felt that if Lu Dao was really the buyer, he wouldn't have ignored Cheng Jin for 2 years. Cheng Jin thought his brother's reasoning made sense, but he still didn't understand why Lu Dao would buy something he didn't like. Cheng Shu placed his hand on his shoulder, guessing that Lu Dao probably wanted to gift the night pearl to someone. Cheng Jin thought this possibility was slim because after Lu Dao lost his memory, no suspicious person came to visit. Cheng Shu speculated that maybe Lu Dao didn't want Cheng Jin to find out and deliberately hid it. Cheng Jin still refused to accept the reality, pointing out that Lu Dao's communicator had no anomalies. After all, if there really was an affair, there would always be some traces left. Cheng Shu, while frying sausages, tried to convince his younger brother that making no slip-ups wasn't that difficult. He touched the other's head again and asked how Lu Dao treated the other after losing his memory. The other affirmed this. Cheng Shu, seeing his younger brother's aggrieved look, couldn't help but feel distressed and said that he would take the other away from here in a few months. The other was somewhat shocked and asked what he planned to do about their father's illness. He had already contacted the hospital and doctors on the 6-star planet, and they could leave once their father's condition stabilized after the surgery, which coincided closely with the time Lu Dao would regain his memory. Cheng Jin fell into contemplation, and Cheng Shu comforted him that although the environment on the 6-star planet wasn't as good as here, they could still live well. Cheng Shu pressed his forehead against Cheng Jin's, promising to take good care of his younger brother no matter what. Cheng Jin wiped away his tears and immediately asked if his brother was having a hard time, thinking that if his brother got married, a sister-in-law could help take care of him. At this point, Cheng Shu imagined Yan Qi as a house husband and suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Cheng Jin asked if his brother still had any thoughts of getting married, but Cheng Shu seemed a bit hesitant. Yan Qi happened to come in and overheard the word, marriage. Acting proud, he asked Cheng Shu who he wanted to marry. Cheng Shu immediately diverted the topic, saying that the meal was ready and it was time to eat. Yan Qi was clearly unwilling to skip this topic. Resting his chin on his hand, he brought up the marriage topic again at the dining table, mentioning that he and Cheng Jin had an arranged engagement when they were kids. Everyone's expressions were different. Lu Dao was a bit angry and grabbed Cheng Jin's hand, asking if it was true, but Cheng Jin said he knew nothing about it. Yan Qi put his hand on Cheng Shu's waist, asking him to confirm the story. Cheng Shu immediately said that it was true, but it was just a joke between the families and they shouldn't take it seriously. Cheng Jin finally breathed a sigh of relief. Yan Qi, resting his chin on his hand, jokingly said he cared about it and was thinking that the Cheng family had a bride-to-be. Lu Dao interjected to stop Yan Qi, holding Cheng Jin and once again asserting his claim. He sternly told Yan Qi not to make such jokes again. Cheng Jin, held in Lu Dao's arms, realized Lu Dao was defending him and felt very happy. Ai Shui quickly stepped in to smooth things over, inviting everyone to start eating. After lunch, Cheng Shu said goodbye to Cheng Jin, as he had work to handle in the afternoon and needed to leave soon. Cheng Jin prepared a bag of food for him to take back. Ai Shui also tactfully left, reminding Lu Dao and Cheng Jin to enjoy their time together. Cheng Jin waved goodbye to them reluctantly. Lu Dao, standing nearby, was a bit jealous. Cheng Jin explained that he didn't know when he would see his brother again, so naturally, he would feel reluctant. Lu Dao was not satisfied with this answer and grabbed Cheng Jin's hand. He pushed him back against the wall, expressing that the real person he was jealous of was Yan Qi. Cheng Jin disliked Yan Qi because his gaze seemed to view him as a fool and he inexplicably felt hostility from him. After explaining this, he stepped forward and kissed Lu Dao on the cheek, then invited Lu Dao to open the gifts together. Cheng Jin asked Lu Dao to take some gifts to his grandmother. When asked if he wanted to go together, he declined because he was worried that seeing him might upset his grandmother. He had done something wrong in the past, which made his grandmother dislike him, and he was also worried that she might tell Lu Dao about it, causing him to dislike him too. Lu Dao smiled and told Cheng Jin that none of this would happen. After all, he had already realized his mistake. He had heard that Cheng Jin used to be very spoiled, but clearly, he had changed now. Cheng Jin handed a cashmere blanket to Lu Dao, specifically instructing him not to tell his grandmother that he had knitted it, to avoid her rejecting it. Lu Dao patted his head and planned to put the things away. Watching Lu Dao's departing figure, Cheng Jin was worried that his grandmother might tell Lu Dao the truth, and he would get angry. He even considered seducing him. Thinking of this, he decided to take a bath first and clean himself up. While drying his hair, he opened the bedroom door and then lay down by the bed. He remembered that the items he ordered online hadn't been unboxed yet and were all thrown under the bed. Sure enough, he reached under the bed and found a box. He opened the box happily, swallowing with anticipation. He happily opened the box and swallowed, his face blushing as he took out the items from the box, wondering if Lu Tao would like them. Just as he was lost in thought, Lu Tao suddenly came back and asked him what he was doing. Cheng Jin was caught red-handed with the toys by Lu Tao, and his face immediately turned red with embarrassment. Feeling too ashamed to face Lu Tao, he quickly crawled under the bed. Lu Tao was initially a bit annoyed, but seeing the hairband and bells scattered on the floor, he immediately understood. Cheng Jin, who had already hidden under the bed, then realized that he had left the toys outside. The other party lifted the bed cover and asked him to come out. He, with his face red, curled up into a ball under the bed, praying incessantly that the other party wouldn't see him. Lu Tao found Cheng Jin's appearance very cute. He pretended to be angry and asked him to come out quickly. The other party then slowly crawled out from under the bed, looking particularly adorable. Lu Tao stepped forward, hugged Cheng Jin, and asked him if he was dissatisfied with his behavior in some aspects, which led him to play with toys when he wasn't home. The other party immediately explained that he played with the toys to please him, which left him somewhat puzzled. Cheng Jin was afraid that his grandmother would tell Lu Tao some old stories, even more afraid that Lu Tao would get angry at him. Lu Tao moved closer to Cheng Jin, deliberately asking how he intended to please him with these things, pointing at the pile of toys. The other party immediately waved his hands and stammered an explanation that the toys were new and had never been played with. Lu Tao looked at the scattered hairbands and bells, hoping for an explanation. The other person blushed immediately, saying they were bought by mistake. In the next moment, the bell was put around Cheng Jin's neck, and he seemed a bit reluctant. Lu Tao smiled, saying the size was just right and it wasn't bought by mistake. He handed the hairband to Cheng Jin, leaned close to his ear, and told him to put on the hairband himself and wait for him on the bed. Then he took out a sticker and asked if it was also bought. The other person hurriedly explained that it was a gift from the seller and immediately reached out to grab it. Lu Tao was skeptical of this explanation. He planned to stick the sticker on the other person's waist. Lu Tao reassured Cheng Jin not to move, and quickly stuck the sticker on. With the sticker on, Cheng Jin's eyes became very dreamy, and he actively pounced on him. He saw the instruction manual and realized it was a heat-sensitive quick tattoo sticker. By this time, the other person had struck a very alluring and enticing pose, even sticking out his tongue, giving off a catgirl vibe. However, Lu Tao suddenly frowned, looking very displeased. He pinned Cheng Jin down on the bed, intending to have a good time, but the other person suddenly covered his mouth, accusing him of not being loving enough before. Lu Tao kissed Cheng Jin's hair and asked if it was true. The other person confirmed it, saying no matter how much he tried to please or beg him, it was of no use. Cheng Jin looked very aggrieved, blaming Lu Tao for being too mean, even unwilling to look at his face. After saying this, he started fussing, asking him to look at his face now. Then the two embraced and fell in love, the scene looking very harmonious. Cheng Jin lay very gently in Lu Tao's arms. Lu Tao thought the other looked very well behaved, not at all like someone who would threaten others into marriage. He gently moved Cheng Jin to the bed. As Cheng Jin seemed overly humble in front of him, and insecure, he guessed that he might have been very indifferent to Cheng Jin before. He was somewhat curious about what kind of indifference could make the other person become like this. He asked Fei Li for a schedule from the past 7 years and learned from it that, in 7 years, he only returned for 5 months and 3 days. Even when he returned, he was mostly training at the military base, rarely coming home. The time left for Cheng Jin was probably not much. He gently stroked Cheng Jin's face with his fingers, not understanding how much Cheng Jin must like him to not file for divorce. He was also curious about what his feelings toward Cheng Jin were before. If his personality hadn't changed much before and after amnesia, he probably wouldn't have maintained a relationship with someone he disliked. He reached out to tidy Cheng Jin's hair, thinking Cheng Jin completely fit his aesthetic. Suddenly, he noticed something off in the schedule. When Cheng Jin applied to accompany him in the army, they were searching for spies. Looking at the timeline, it must have been right after clearing the last wave of werewolves. Based on his previous way of handling things, he guessed he might have sent Cheng Jin back immediately out of concern for Cheng Jin's safety. Lu Tao rested his chin on his hand, lying beside Cheng Jin and quietly watching him. He wondered if he really disliked Cheng Jin before. How could he explain his current feelings? Thinking of this, he hugged Cheng Jin in his arms. At this moment, Cheng Jin woke up. Lu Tao looked at him with a smile, very satisfied with his performance last night. Chang Jin stopped rubbing his eyes, blushing instantly, and said he didn't remember anything. Lu Dao somewhat regretted not recording his appearance last night. Chang Jin shyly hid under the blanket, saying they could record it next time. Lu Dao rested his chin on his hand and teased the other if they also wanted to see. He hooked the other person's chin with his finger, asking if they really didn't remember what happened last night. The other person vigorously shook their head. They truly didn't remember. Lu Dao then asked where the stickers were bought, thinking if someone else used them, wouldn't it be taking advantage without knowing? He also asked if the other person had used them before. The other person said they couldn't remember where they bought them, guessing they might have been a gift from the seller. Lu Dao stared at the other person seriously, confirming once more that they hadn't used them before. The other person hid behind the blanket, looking very shy, saying if they were to use them, it would be with him, and they hadn't been intimate with other men. Lu Dao leaned forward and kissed Chang Jin's eyes, feeling relieved that they hadn't used them. He then wrapped his arm around the other's waist, and the two started to get intimate again. Lu Dao told Chang Jin that Ai Shui had invited him to a gathering and asked if they wanted to join. The other person refused without a second thought. He thought they didn't want to go out with him, but it turned out they had guessed it was a competitive type of gathering and also had unfinished work. Because there was still work unfinished, it was declined. Lu Dao proposed opening a joint account with Chang Jin, but Chang Jin declined again. Since the other party was already covering all the household expenses, Chang Jin only needed to help his brother with their father's medication costs. Lu Dao confirmed the joint account matter once more, but was declined again. Chang Jin remembered when their family hadn't gone bankrupt yet. His father strongly opposed him opening a joint account with Lu Dao, fearing that Lu Dao would take advantage of their family's assets, and wanted to use money to control Lu Dao. At the time, he agreed with his father's perspective. However, Lu Dao never exploited their family's assets and through his own efforts achieved great success. Therefore, when the Chang family faced difficulties, Chang Jin felt embarrassed to seek help from Lu Dao. Given how he had once maliciously doubted Lu Dao, Chang Jin carried the sewn dress and pushed open the door of the high-end fashion store. At this moment, Andy was dealing with a troublesome customer. He explained to the customer that Madame Ruila's schedule was fully booked, but the customer insisted on wearing a dress made by Madame Ruila before the Orange Blossom banquet. Chang Jin happened to walk into this situation, and young Master Lien immediately mocked him, saying he was bankrupt yet still had money to shop here and asked where his bullying demeanor had gone. Without a word, Chang Jin directly apologized to the other party, leaving them speechless. Chang Jin continued to apologize and bowed sincerely to the other party. The other party was not expecting Chang Jin to apologize and turned to Andy for confirmation. Andy told young Master Lien not to stoop to Chang Jin's level. Young Master Lien suddenly became interested in the box Chang Jin was holding and opened the lid, causing the entire dress to fall out. He picked up the dress and immediately recognized it as Madame Ruila's work. Chang Jin stammered as he requested the dress back. While Chang Jin was distracted, the other party secretly took a blue crystal from the dress. When throwing the dress back, they mocked him for running errands for others. Chang Jin, sharp-eyed, noticed a blue crystal was missing from the dress, even though he had protected it carefully. He had no choice but to ask the other party if they had seen the fallen blue crystal. The other party disdainfully thought he was accusing them of stealing it. Chang Jin hastily explained he didn't mean that. The other party disdainfully pulled out a blue crystal, indicating they had one too. Although Chang Jin was suspicious, he had no evidence. He planned to buy the blue crystal from the other party for 100,000 balance. The other party, however, said they could give him the blue crystal, but he must serve as their servant for a day during the orange flower banquet, intending to humiliate him. Chang Jin was a bit hesitant, and the other party threatened him with the blue crystal. Currently, the blue crystal is priceless and not available in the market. 100,000 balance would definitely not be enough to buy it. Clearly, the threat was successful, and Chang Jin had no choice but to agree to the unreasonable demands. After Lu Dao returned, he handed Chang Jin a small box and said he wanted to give the other party a surprise. Chang Jin was curious about what was inside and reached out to take the box. However, Lu Dao suddenly pulled back his hand and held the box up high, taking the opportunity to ask for a kiss, saying he would give it to him if he got a kiss. Blushing, Chang Jin mustered up the courage and kissed him on the face. Taking the chance, the other party held his waist, picked him up, and pushed him onto the sofa, kissing him deeply. Chang Jin, unable to breathe from the kiss, pounded on the other party's back, and only then did they let him go. Lu Dao opened the small box to reveal a sapphire bracelet, as Chang Jin's favorite is sapphire. Lu Dao fastened the bracelet on his wrist and reminded him that wearing the bracelet he gave means he belongs to him and that he should never think of running away in this lifetime. Lu Dao held Chang Jin's hand and caressed his face, asking if he liked the bracelet he gave. Chang Jin smiled brightly and said he liked it very much. While Lu Dao laid him down, Chang Jin hesitantly told him that he wanted to go to the bedroom for intimacy. He directly refused Chang Jin's request, saying the sofa was good enough and had a sense of novelty. Suddenly, he remembered that Ai Shui had invited him to attend a mecha manipulation banquet at the end of the month and asked if Chang Jin wanted to attend together. Chang Jin was relieved to hear it wasn't the orange flower banquet. He declined Lu Dao's invitation, which Lu Dao found very puzzling and was somewhat angry about. Chang Jin hooked his arm around Lu Dao's neck and asked in return if it wasn't better to show it only to him. Lu Dao was very pleased with this statement. He lifted Chang Jin's chin, indicating that he wanted to take a closer look. Soon, the day of the Orange Blossom Banquet arrived, and Chang Jin served as Lien Xiaoyi's servant for a day as agreed. He changed into the headgear and outfit prepared by the other party. The skirt was so short that it revealed half of his buttocks. He felt that this outfit was not quite appropriate, and although there were male servant outfits available, the other party was determined to humiliate him. They wouldn't let him change into a male servant outfit and reminded him not to disobey the master's orders. Soon, some people gathered around, and some thought Chang Jin, with his petite figure, looked cute in a maid outfit. Lien Xiaoyi deliberately made Chang Jin raise his head to greet everyone, and people began to discuss Chang Jin. He could only listen silently, and some even discussed his partner, criticizing his high-status partner for allowing him to demean himself like this. Others said he didn't have a wedding ceremony and doubted he was ever married off. Coupled with his bad temper, the guest no one wanted to marry him. Soon, an announcement was broadcasted for the guests participating in the knitting competition to gather in the courtyard. Lien Xiaoyi thought this was a good opportunity to humiliate Chang Jin and immediately called Chang Jin to go to the courtyard with him. People around thought Chang Jin would lose, as he had always given the impression of being a pampered young master. At this moment, the host was holding Chang Jin's work and loudly announced the winner of the competition was Chang Jin. Chang Jin stood on the podium somewhat awkwardly. Soon, a lady dressed in luxurious clothes stopped Chang Jin. Chang Jin recognized the skirt the lady was wearing as one he had sewn. The lady was haughty, believing he had no right to attend the banquet and criticized him for dressing in such a way to seduce men and seek a man's sponsorship. At this moment, a voice suddenly echoed through the venue, drawing everyone's attention. It was Lu Dao arriving with his grandmother. It was Lu Dao who pushed his grandmother here. He immediately stated that Chang Jin, as his legal partner, had the status of a general's wife and did not need to rely on other means to stay on the imperial planet. Lu Dao stepped forward, hugged Chang Jin's waist, and pulled the other into his arms. He even deliberately called the other, "Madam," in front of everyone, showing his support. Lu Dao asked Chang Jin why he didn't tell him about coming to the Orange Blossom party. Chang Jin apologized with a red face but felt embarrassed in his heart. They had shown such intimacy, but still, some people doubted they were legal partners. Lu Dao did not indulge the other party and counter-asked if they wanted to see their marriage certificate. The other party, embarrassed by Lu Dao's boldness, immediately said it was not necessary. The grandmother's sister praised Chang Jin's craftsmanship and wanted him to finish the remaining half of the work and give it to her. The other party agreed without hesitation. Chang Jin, wearing a maid outfit, greeted the grandmother somewhat awkwardly. The grandmother was very dissatisfied with his dress and ordered him to change immediately. The grandmother's sister quickly came out to mediate, thinking Chang Jin's dress was quite cute. Lu Dao stepped forward to speak for Chang Jin, but Chang Jin spoke first, saying he promised to be a servant for young Master Lien for a day and could not break his word. The grandmother was somewhat stunned by Chang Jin's words. Young Master Lien stammered an explanation, saying it was just a joke. Chang Jin could change whenever he wanted. Then he started to apologize, admitting that he had deceived Chang Jin. The blue crystal was dropped by him to humiliate Chang Jin. Young Master Lien apologized and ran off. The others also had their arrangements. After everyone left, Lu Dao reminded Chang Jin that it was time to explain. He also asked about the clothes Chang Jin was wearing. Chang Jin, with his head down, was somewhat at a loss. Chang Jin explained the whole story to Lu Dao. After listening, Lu Dao was very angry and regretted letting young Master Lien go so easily. At this moment, Eureka asked Chang Jin if he wanted to make the transaction now. He had already prepared the balance to buy dessert coupons. Lu Dao thought Chang Jin had worked hard to win the championship to give the prize to Eureka. Chang Jin hurriedly explained that he was not giving but selling it to Eureka. He had discussed with Eureka and wanted to give him the dessert coupons a day later because he wanted to take Lu Dao to try it first. He also said he didn't need the other person's balance. When Eureka saw such a good thing, she immediately agreed and thought Chang Jin was very nice. Then Cheng Jin explained to Lu Dao that he wanted to find a place to change clothes. Lu Dao blushed a little, thinking it wasn't necessary and that the other person looked cute dressed like that. The other person was also blushed by his words. Then Lu Dao took Cheng Jin to enjoy other activities. Lu Dao changed into swimming trunks and surfed in the pool. Cheng Jin immediately transformed into a cheerleader to support him. The two embraced sweetly in front of the castle, while Yan Qi was responsible for taking pictures of Cheng Shu. A beautiful day ended like this. At this moment, a handsome battleship was sailing in the night sky. At the window, the reflection of Lu Dao and Cheng Jin showed them kissing each other. Cheng Jin timely stopped Lu Dao, saying whatever it is, they should do it at home. Lu Dao didn't accept his suggestion and wanted to resolve it on the spot. Lu Dao lifted Cheng Jin's skirt, asking if he wasn't worried about exposure while dressed so cutely. The other person shyly pulled down the skirt, saying he was always careful to cover it. Lu Dao thought this made him even more conspicuous and stammered, asking the other person not to tease. However, the other person took it further, whispered some bold words into his ear, which made him bristle with resistance to doing anything on the battleship. Then he playfully hit the other's chest with his fists, emphasizing several times that it wasn't allowed. The next second, his hand was grabbed by the other person. The other person pitifully said it hurt. Seeing the other's aggrieved look, Cheng Jin hesitated and couldn't say anything more, just let out a long sigh. Lu Dao pressed the start button, and the battleship took off directly. Cheng Jin had compromised, shyly turned his head, and leaned against the window, looking quite pitiable. Lu Dao didn't expect the other person to be so proactive, achieving his goal. Cheng Jin, a bit shy, said he could see Lu Dao's face through the window. Lu Dao was already standing behind him, gently calling him, baby, and kissing the back of his neck, praising him for being beautiful. Cheng Jin was very pleased with Lu Dao's compliments. It was praise he had never heard before. The other person kissed his ear, thinking he seemed a bit distracted, and asked what he was thinking about. Cheng Jin, blushing, turned to Lu Dao and said he wasn't distracted, he was always thinking about Lu Dao. Lu Dao then asked if he was thinking about the old him. The other party suddenly started crying, then turned back to touch his face, affirming his words. Unexpectedly, Lu Dao suddenly got angry and forbade the other party from thinking about his past self, saying he would get jealous. Cheng Jin couldn't understand this. Clearly, both were Lu Dao, but Lu Dao believed that without his past memories, he couldn't be considered the same person, insisting that Cheng Jin should only think of him now. Hearing this, Cheng Jin couldn't help but be amused. He leaned forward to embrace the other's neck, agreeing to only think about the current Lu Dao. At this moment, he felt that no matter how cold Lu Dao became after recovering, even if he drove him away or divorced him, it would be worth it. At the Orange Flower Banquet, the news of Lu Dao publicly revealing his partner's identity caused a huge stir, landing them in entertainment news. Meanwhile, the two were tasting desserts at the Sunny Cake Shop, where Cheng Jin picked up a piece of strawberry cheesecake in front of him. He thoughtfully fed it to Lu Dao, suggesting with a smile that he try this flavor. Lu Dao also found it delicious. Eureka and Ai Shui also arrived. Eureka immediately noticed Cheng Jin's Planet 6 keychain. He wanted the other party to transfer it to him, as he was only missing Planet 6 and Empire Planet for a complete collection. Cheng Jin was puzzled about how they showed up there. Ai Shui explained that Eureka wanted to eat desserts, so he accompanied him, coincidentally running into Cheng Jin and the others. He pulled out a chair and asked Lu Dao if he minded them joining the table, feeling they might be interrupting the date. Lu Dao admitted it was indeed an interruption, but he didn't mind because he and Cheng Jin were legal partners with plenty of time to spend together.